All right, everybody. We've got a fair number of people here on. Some people might still be funneling in, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tessa Leb. I'm the marketing manager at Ardham Technologies. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to our regional manager of sales, Marcos Artiaga. Marcos?
Hey, thanks, Tessa. Welcome, everyone. Thank you guys for joining today's Coffee Connect event, hosted in partnership with Ardham and Pure Storage. And we're super excited, as Tessa mentioned, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and diving into a critical topic, building cyber resilience for today and tomorrow, before, during, and after an attack. As cyber threats grow increasingly sophisticated, as we've all seen, it's more important than ever to be prepared at every stage of an incident. And in this webinar, we have Mike Bottomley and Mike Revenue from Pure Storage, and we'll help guide you through crafting a comprehensive resilient strategy that spans throughout the entire life cycle of a cyber event. And with that, Mike and Mike, kick it off.
All right. So I'm Mike Bottomley. I'm the account exec for Pure Storage that covers the state of New Mexico. Glad that folks are joining here. And yeah, we'd just like to have some conversation around cybersecurity, what you guys are doing, and just bring in the broad picture. So a lot of folks understand cybersecurity as prevention of threats, but we also like to talk about what happens if something comes in. You can build moats and walls around your castle as much as you want, but if the Trojan horse comes in, it's really important to understand if you have the right tools to be able to not only react, but properly recover from those types of threats or attacks. And we'll dive into that a little bit further. Go ahead, Revenue.
Yeah, and I'm Mike Revenue. I'm a systems engineer. I work with Mike, and everything that I'll just reiterate what Marcos and Mike has already said. Marcos used the word comprehensive. I don't know that today will be a comprehensive deep dive in the time frame we have, but know that Pure has a cyber resilience team, and we actually also have a cyber resilience workshop that our cyber resilience experts will come in and do. And that will do a deep dive into your environment. And one of the things they really emphasize in that workshop is how to recover from a cyber attack. Most customers understand how to recover from a business continuity disaster recovery issues, but cyber resilience and attacks are completely different recovery methods, completely different issues and problems, and they can help you dive into all that. So we'll give you a little taste of what Pure can do today, and then either if you're a SLED, and Mike and I don't think Mike mentioned it, but Mike and I cover SLED customers in New Mexico, so state and local government, higher education, and Indian gaming, but your other Pure teams can help with these same issues too. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. And let's get started. If my screen, there we go. So if this is a surprise to you, prepare to be shocked. But cybercrime is growing. It's not getting better. It's not tailing off. It's not a fad. It is a serious, legitimate issue. According to the latest stats and trend, it is it's just happening constantly. Looking at some of these things here, 1.7 million attacks a day, 19 every second. It's just an ongoing issue that is not going away, and you have to be prepared for it. And again, emphasizing heavily, recovering from a cyber attack is different than recovering from business recovery or disaster recovery. Use some of the same tools, but there's different issues and things you need to worry about. So yes, yeah. It is a problem. It's not going away.
Definitely. And one thing I'll mention too is just, personal observations. I have seen a lot more of cyber activity as far as attacks and ransomware attacks on smaller businesses. And so it's not just hitting the large enterprises anymore, even though there are companies that offer cyber attacks as a service, which is crazy. But I see it. I see them going after everything. I mean, everything from trying to break into my wife's cell phone account to I know a couple small business owners who have recently been attacked. Even ones in the cloud have had their credentials stolen, their multi-factor authentication stolen, and they've taken over their business and they're trying to scam customers out of money right now. So I just heard about one of these yesterday when I visited a friend. So it's getting scary.
Yeah. And with cyber, there is obviously a large cost to downtime. So these are just some statistics that we have, but it's not a inexpensive activity. And a lot of times, if you're getting hit by a cyber attack, you're not down for an hour, you're down for days, weeks. So the amount of money that you lose, that a business loses, that it costs a business, can more than pay for some of the tools you need to fight back against it. So
Absolutely. And the longer you're down, the more it's going to cost, right? So rapid recovery is really the key. Some of you guys know me from my past life, and I worked in a data protection company, right? And one of the biggest things we talked about is the ability to recover, and we'll dive into that a little deeper here in the next few slides.
yeah, and as Mike mentioned, ransomware as a service is a real thing. So there's on the dark web, people have got systems set up to you pay your monthly fee. They probably take credit cards. I don't know for sure, and you can use their tools to go and attack people. And the big thing is that you don't need to be a hardcore hacker anymore. Novices can do this, and then of course you got nation state type of attacks. I worked at a three-letter company, not a government company, but a three-letter storage company years ago, and they got attacked by the Korean government. And they stole some of their source code for their multi-factor authentication. So it was a pretty sophisticated attack that went on for months before, and that company was a security company that got caught. So everybody is vulnerable.
Absolutely. And one thing to add to that, when we talk about nation states or foreign entities, especially if they're an entity that's deemed a terrorist organization, if they touch your data in any way, your data now becomes state's evidence. So just something to think about as we move on.
Yeah, so kind of the way the industry looks at it, the way we look at it is, the 5 stages. Before the attack, you want to be able to identify and protect your systems. A lot of companies are investing a lot of money into the identify, protect, detect piece, and they've got a lot of money invested in the respond and recover. But all their respond and recover procedures are based upon disaster recovery type of scenarios. We lose an array. How do we restore it in another data center, and how do we get everything back up and running? With cyber resilience, like Mike just said, the government could come in and say all your data is evidence, and you can't use it. Now all of a sudden you can't recover in your backup data center because it's got a copy of that data that the government wants, like if it's synchronized, and there's a whole host of other issues that come in. And that's where that deep dive resiliency workshop can get into, because they are experts in this, and can really help you dig into your process and procedures and things like that. So.
Yeah, 10 years ago, your biggest threat was environmental, right? Is a water line that you didn't know about going to break inside your data center? Is is a server going to catch fire? A UPS battery going to catch fire and take out a rack? I mean, those were the biggest things we had to worry about. And of course, just a simple disaster recovery strategy would have handled that. Things have gotten a lot worse because this proliferates through the entire organization.
Yeah. So what are you supposed to do? You need to start protecting yourself before the attack. Obviously, afterwards is closing the barn door after all the animals are out. It's not going to help you. So, work on getting visibility, getting control of your existing systems. What are you going to do during an attack? Isolating the event, invoking your business continuity disaster recovery plans, and then after your attack, having a plan for all 3 stages, so that after your attack, you got a quick recovery and advanced forensics and cleanup. So, those
Yeah.
are the three primary domains where we see companies focusing on to protect themselves. Mike, you're the NIST guy. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, what Mike here, Rev here already has mentioned that folks really focus on the identify and detect side of it, right? You've got SIEM, SOAR tools, you've got firewalls, you've got all the front end security put into place. But the one thing that I've heard that has been a constant in the environment is folks have so many tools in their arsenal that they overlap at some points and they start to get snowblind, and there is a human element into how things can slip through the cracks and become basically something that creeps under the covers and gets you later. I think when you think about how a data storage device comes into play, again, we're really talking about the respond and recover. And even though we see folks who have a response, it's like, hey, I know what's going to happen if I get hit, how I'm going to respond. We're going to go ahead and we're going to be able to pull backups and do our threat scanning and look for our threats, and we're going to do our forensic analysis and get it back up. But what a lot of folks fail to realize is that if you get hit and a security team comes in and they decide that, well, we need to understand where the point of entry was, what's ground zero for this attack, their dwell time might have been 6 months, 9 months, and they might ask you to say, let's recover a backup of this VM that we know got hit first, and we need a recovery from a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago. And if you tell them that, okay, well, I can do that, but it looks like this is going to take probably 2 or 3 weeks, that might be the time you take before you can actually do that analysis and get it back up. So something that's very, very critical is being able to have a historic amount of data going back at least 2 or 3 months that you can rapidly recover from in the matter of minutes, if not if not maybe hours, worst case scenario, to be able to present and do that forensic analysis and find the threat, and so you can go through all your workloads, bring them into basically a clean room, isolate, remove the threat before you bring those workloads back up. Because if you're just going to restore from the day before the attack, you're most likely going to find out that everything's going to just re-encrypt itself within a matter of hours.
Yeah. So question: how does a storage company help you do all those things that Mike just talked about? Looking at the framework, identify when we talk about software lifecycle versioning, one of the powerful tools that Pure has is the ability to do non-disruptive software and hardware upgrades, but specifically what we call self-service software upgrades. So as we have a very robust software development process, we roll new features and functionalities on a fairly regular basis, and it's very easy to do those upgrades. So you can always keep your code at the latest and greatest versions. So you as we identify issues and things like that, you can quickly get your code up to speed. It's like for Mike and I, we really push our customers to keep everything not latest and greatest, but latest enterprise ready greatest. We also can help you protect your environment. I talked about the data protection assessment. We also have a security assessment. We have a cyber resiliency team. They can come in and help you do those things. Under the detect phase, in our support system, and it is so much more than the support system. That calling it a support system is criminal, but it's called Pure One. And one of the things we do in Pure One is we continually analyze your telemetry data from your arrays that come in, and we look for certain anomalies. The biggest anomaly we look for that everyone can really resonates and everyone understands is a data reduction rate anomaly. So what happens in the event of a cyber attack? Your data reduction rates go from 3 to 1 down to 1 to 1. we use analytics to monitor that telemetry data. And if we see a change in your data reduction rates, we will open up a case and alert you that we're seeing something happening on your array. Had an example of a customer where their Oracle DBAs started to encrypt their database backups before they backed them up to a backup array. They were using one of our arrays as just a file system to store their backups. So our anomaly detection caught that their data reduction rates were dropping and pinged them to say, you've got something going on in your environment. You need to look at this. And they looked into it and figured out what was going on. But the whole point was that we caught it, Pure One, our support system caught it before the customer caught it. And those are things that are just part of your support costs. It's nothing extra. It's not an add-on package. Under the respond, we can help you in a cyber recovery situation with a pristine environment. And under the recovery, we have in our Evergreen One service, we have a SLA for a cyber recovery SLA. And what we do with that SLA is if you declare a cyber attack, we will pull the first array off the production line and ship it to you within 24 hours. And that array arrives with an engineer who will help you take copies of your data from your existing production systems, which maybe we talked about multiple times how the Fed may rope them off. We can get you a copy onto another system and get that system up and running. And that SLA, I think it's like 48 hours to have your system up and running again. So while, if the government comes in and says you can't use any of your data, we've seen a lot of, we've gotten sales where customers are like, oh my God, I need another array because I don't have anywhere to put my data. I got backups, but I can't restore them because my primary systems are roped off. So part of this SLA is that we send you an array. And then on top of everything, we have what we call Pure Fusion that allows you to set policies and standards and templates and monitor all of your systems using a enterprise data cloud like environment, so you can make sure that everything's up to speed. So, and
Yep.
Tess, I'm assuming that if questions pop up, you will jump in because I don't see that.
Yep, you're exactly right there.
And I've got the Q&A board up as well, so
okay, cool.
I can always bring up. Yeah, just something of mention here. I have personally been part of a cyber attack where they actually deemed our storage evidence. And get this was 15 years ago. This is before ransomware incidents happened, but I worked for a DoD contractor at the time, and there was an exfiltration event from China. Basically, they were trying to steal data about one of our satellites because they assumed, well, maybe it's a spy satellite, and they're trying to pull data from it. And yeah, the FBI, and I don't remember what other, I think Homeland Security came in, there was a couple other agencies, and they literally made us unplug our storage systems from the network to stop hosting data immediately. And they set up a lab and they connected to them and they scoured the data for about a week before they finally let us put things back online. And so that is not something that's relatively new, but again, the thing to keep in mind, the more entities that are deemed as terrorist organizations, the more likely an event like that would be to happen.
Yeah, and Pure helps there in that we have some unique things like data encryption at rest, not a big deal in the event of a ransomware attack, but we have what's called safe mode, which is a tool to help recover from ransomware, and that's built into our system. One of the things that's nice about Pure is that we don't any of the things that we talk about other than any of the features we talk about are all built into our code. So nothing's an add-on, nothing's a separate product you have to buy. So when we talk about safe mode, when we talk about Fusion, these are things that are built right into the system that will continue to be developed and expanded upon. So, we help you with that. We help you with speed of recovery. And then the visibility is a big piece too. When Mike talked about running forensics, one of the first things you have to do when you have a ransomware attack is start looking at your data and figure out when the payload came in, what's a good point in time to get your copy. Well, if it takes 30 minutes to pull a backup and you got to look through 100 backups to see where's a good starting point, that's a long time. Where with our systems, you can pull from snapshots that are near instantaneous. So we can really help speed up the process.
And then for those of you who are existing Veeam and Commvault customers, they both have tools that will allow the orchestration of actually doing restorations of VMs, just like you would from your traditional backup appliance. You can orchestrate the same type of recovery from a snapshot. So if you have a Pure array already and you're on this call, look at the tools available to you, because it's not going to cost you anything to integrate with your safe mode snapshots.
Yep,
And
you can pull those right off the support sites for Veeam and for Commvault. So, excuse me. Sorry, Mike, I interrupted you.
No, go for it.
Okay, so some of the tools, we'll get into a little more technical side of it now. Now, some of the tools we use, and we'll start with the most robust and work our way down. So what we call Active Cluster. So Active Cluster is primarily a business continuity tool. It gives you the ability across a metro region, and it's a synchronous replication across a metro region. So based on VMware cluster, a SQL cluster, Oracle rack, you can spread your data across 2 locations. The latency is wholly dependent on the application. We can run synchronous across 60 milliseconds. It'll just be really slow. So the application has to be able to withstand the latency between both sides of a synchronous cluster, saying that it's okay. But what this gives you is the exact same data in 2 different locations. Now, what I always like to joke and say, synchronous is awesome. The problem is if you have a bug or you have corrupt data or you have a ransomware attack, you have a perfectly synchronized bug data ransomware attack. So Active Cluster is kind of the first step in the process. We have another feature called Active DR, which is what we call continuous replication. So you configure Active DR just like you would an Active Cluster, except you run your cluster in an active passive mode. What this allows you to do is to decrease your recovery point objective and increase your recovery time objective, but you're not limited by IP latency. So you can run an Active DR from New Mexico, and you could have a data center in Texas, and you're going to have maybe a minute of data loss in the event of you losing your primary cluster. But in the event, you can script it or use some type of tool where you bring in the event of a disaster, you bring your passive side up online and everything's there and everything's running. So we also have local snapshots, pretty standard meat and potatoes for an array, but we have the ability to take local snapshots. We also have the ability to take those local snapshots and asynchronously replicate them anywhere. Again, that's meat and potatoes for any storage array. And you can have, the typical features and functionality of all that stuff built in. You can take snapshots, every 15 minutes, keep those for a day, keep a daily, for a week, keep a weekly for a month. You can replicate those off site. You can play around and create a Frankenstein monster with your snapshots and your replications however you'd like. You got a lot of flexibility there. We also have the ability to do what we call Pure Protect. Now, this is a total disaster recovery option. What Pure Protect allows you to do is at a high level, to cherry pick important VMs and replicate them up to the Amazon cloud. So if you are a smaller environment and you can't afford another array to do replication, you could take your 6 or 7 of your most important VMs and just replicate them into AWS. And we do that same asynchronous type of replication for the entire virtual machine, that for that virtual machine. So not the entire thing, just the specific machine you need. And we copied it up, and then we use change block tracking to keep it synchronized. And then at any point in time, you can spin those up in the cloud and do a disaster, or do some type of DR test on it to make sure that they're working. And we kind of encapsulate the application and the data, so it puts everything up there. So it's an easier, less expensive way for customers who, again, if you're a big customer, have an active cluster, yeah, you got two big machines and you're replicating data and you got all the networking and everything you need to do that. If you're not, um, we've got some other options. And then, the last line of defense is traditional backup. Used to always say, if you don't do backups, keep your resume up to date and keep your resume offline. I don't think anyone doesn't do backups anymore. I've been in this business for a while. So used to be a point in time when backup people were selling the concept of backups. Like, are you backing stuff up? It's like, well, we don't really need it. We can just reload everything. It's like, well, from what? Um, we not going to dig into this. This would be a much greater in-depth conversation. But some of the things we do, work with using our tools to work with something like Splunk or Elastic to set up a log system, allow you to scale out that system and really dig into what's going on, especially across large, complex environments. We, excuse me for a second. We work within the SIM format, I guess you could call it, to help you, build these things out. You can leverage our storage for, threat detection. You can leverage our storage to get visibility into it, and then we can work with you to set up, systems to do log data and things of that nature. So you meet all the requirements of that.
Yeah, I think the net of this is that you're able to actually use flash arrays to host the SIEM data and be able to not only leverage the flexibility of having high performance, but also extended retention, right? Because you're going to be able to have snapshots. The other thing we can do is obviously, if your tool supports the logging, we can have those logs shipped out to it. So that way, if we're seeing an anomaly such as all of a sudden data reduction suddenly starts dropping because of an encryption event, it just helps you with the with the quicker response time to that.
And we have, again, not a deep dive into technology, but we have two products: Flash Array, Flash Blade. Flash Array is our scale up storage. Flash Blade is our scale out storage. What's nice about the Flash Blade and scale out is, low, and when we say over there, it says low tier performance. Flash blades are pretty fast, but we have a low tier Flash blade where it's cost effective for large archival. So if you're having to take your cold tier or your frozen tier and move it up to an Amazon or out to, I think, didn't Splunk have their own cloud they wanted you to go to? It gets expensive moving things into the cloud. If you ever have to pull them out, it's very slow. So you can build a lot of that stuff on site, and we can help you with that. And we've got solutions that kind of reduce those costs, especially if you're putting tons of stuff up into the cloud for long-term archival for this type of data can get expensive. So we can help you look at your existing, we can do two things. One, we can help you look at your existing environment and build this out, or two, we can look at your existing environment, build it out, or help you maybe save some cost in your existing environment. So one of the things that, and I mentioned this earlier, is the recovery point from a ransomware attack is always different than traditional business continuity. So one of the things that we can help you with is to document and understand what your what the impact's going to be in the event of a ransomware attack, and to help you build a plan around it. So we have like I said, I've said this numerous times, we have a cyber recovery team, and they can help you do this stuff. So it is critical, to not just understand, what your systems look like and what they can do, but how you're what's the process you're gonna have to recover from a ransomware attack.
Yeah, and to to dive in a little deeper on this, work recovery time is really a concept that I know, at least again from my past working in the data recovery business, that is something that's relatively new, because again, for decades, right, our recovery response has been recovering from just a simple outage of some sort, right? A server goes down, there's a temporary data loss of some sort for whatever reason, but the data itself is not corrupt or encrypted. It's just you need to get the data back online, and when just getting the data represented, that is your recovery time objective, right? But now when you think about in terms of a ransomware attack, your downtime is extended by that work recovery time, and what that really means is, okay, I've been able to recover the data is back online, but you're not just gonna fire these servers back up in general population and share your data back out and say, okay, everything's up, it's running. Again, there's going to be malicious code in there that's going to go ahead and reinfect and re-encrypt. So that work recovery time constitutes of, okay, now that I've got the data back online, how long is it going to take me to actually go through again and use my threat scanning tools and chug against all this data to try and find something, and not only are you trying to detect the ransomware, but you're trying to actually look for vulnerability scanning. So there's really two pieces to that: your threat scanning, your vulnerability scanning. And until you get that finished, right, you probably have your VM sitting in an isolated environment. You don't have any. You're basically consoling into a sandbox to go through this data before you actually bring it online. And so what happens is that extends your timeline considerably. Now, there's two pieces where Pure can help this, right? First of all, we can minimize your recovery time objective, right? We can minimize that RTO by having the ability to run rapid recovery. If you're using a high density archive device of some sort that crunches your data down really good, it's kind of like taking all your winter coats and putting them in a space bag and shrinking it up and throwing it in your attic, right? It takes less space, but it's going to take a lot longer if a sudden snowstorm comes in and you need to grab that, check it out. The other piece of it again is how fast can your appliance handle all these massive scans? How many VMs can you scan at once? And and having a performance platform behind that once the data is presented is key to decreasing that time. So we really help on both ends of that. All right,
Thanks,
go
Mike.
ahead, Riv. Yeah.
So as we mentioned a little bit, we work with multiple partners, and we can help you in multiple areas. So looking at this pseudo data center, I guess you could call it. We've got multiple hosts. We're using snapshots in safe mode. We'll get into safe mode in a little bit. One of the things that's nice about Pure also is that from our flash array, from the biggest, fastest model down to the biggest, less fast model. I don't want to say slow because none of our stuff is slow. We can replicate data. We can, all the software works between it. So we have the ability to, take a very fast, what we call an X array, and then asynchronously replicate to a C array, which are also very fast but more dense, and protect things there. And then take that data and move it off to a backup and restore type of situation. We're working with Commvault or Rubrik or any of the major backup people. Interesting question to ask your backup supplier is who they use in their own internal data centers. If you ask that question of Veeam and Commvault and Rubrik for their archive tier, who they use, guess what the answer would be. And if you guessed L, you are wrong. It would be Pure. So they have recognized the need for quick, rapid recovery that Mike and I have mentioned a couple of times. So, but this is
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Sorry, we have a hand raise.
Okay, I don't see this.
Looks like
so.
Carlos. Tessa, can he type that in the chat, or can we unmute Carlos?
Yeah, everybody should have access to unmute themselves.
Yeah, I just had a question on the work recovery time. Do you guys happen to know what the average in days is of work recovery time? I know it's kind of a loaded question. We get asked that here often from upper management, and we kind of give like a 1 to 14 day answer depending on exactly what is down at that time. Do you
I
guys see like an average number of days?
Have you ever heard? Do you know of
Yeah.
an average, Mike? I would say 1 to 14 days is a good answer with an emphasis towards the 14.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's really hard to gauge, right? So the only way to get a very clear answer to your management of your personal work recovery time is for you to actually do a simulation, right? Where you would say, okay, let's see how long it takes. You would pick a day like unfortunately, like I'm sure a weekend or something, where you would say, okay, we're going to carve out a big volume and let's see how long it takes to restore everything, right? And then let's run our threat scanning and our vulnerability scanning tools against this, and let's sit there and stopwatch it. I mean, literally doing a simulation is the only way you could get a definitive answer on what your current work recovery time is. And but you're right, the work recovery time of between 1 and 14 days is the industry standard, because you're just guessing. But here's the thing though. Imagine if somebody had a dwell time of 6 months in your environment, and a security team came in and said, okay, well, we have a bad feeling that we have data on all your systems that's been living there for up to 6 months, and we basically have to scan multiple copies of these systems, of these VMs, to find what file changed, what file they had now that they didn't have before, or a modified date, because they can't actually find the root cause. And imagine if you had all your data living in like a deep glacier or wasabi or something. So now your work recovery time could literally become 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, right? It just depends on your scenario. So that's why, unfortunately, there really is no good answer to that. But understanding what you would have to do in case of a cyber attack, you could probably take a small portion of your environment, do a simulation, and then say, okay, well, for these 5 VMs, it took this long. I have 50. Let's multiply it by, 10 times. Now we know what we have to deal with, or maybe multiply it by 6 or 8 times, and then say, okay, if this is unacceptable, where's the bottleneck? What can we do to reduce that timeline? And it typically comes back to how fast can I recover, and the other side of it is, okay, the appliance that I'm running these scans at, is it a bottleneck? Do I have, am I going to take my storage system to my knees while I'm doing this, and my latency times go 20-30 milliseconds? That's going to greatly impact the scanning time. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I hope that there's really no one size fits all on that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we try to impress upon customers is that the best answer to that question is to just have the best solution possible with the quickest recovery, rapid recovery, and kind of take the approach that we're gonna build the fastest we possibly can, so we don't have to figure out it's going to be 14 to 20 some days. So, but kind of going into the next slide, like what Mike was talking about is doing that test. It's building yourself the clean room, the data vault, the bunker site, and you can test all this and see how long it takes you to do these things, and like Mike said, do the real world scenario to get a solid answer. So, sound good, Carlos? You good with that? You might have muted yourself already.
Yes, I'm good with that answer. Thank you. And everything you guys said is pretty spot on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me just jump into some of the stuff that I talked about earlier. Pure One is our, again, it's I need a better term, but it's our support site. So it's where we store all the data about your systems. So it includes asset management. It includes the ability to do policy-driven self-service upgrades. So, for example, one of the questions we get all the time is, what version of code should I go to? Well, we have the ability to set policies. Do you want to just, essential is the things you got to have, we tell you to have. Balance is, kind of where we recommend an enterprise to be, and proactive are kind of the latest and greatest versions. So you can pick a policy, and then when you go to do your upgrade, instead of seeing, to give you an example, like right now we are supporting, 7, 10, we're supporting 4 lines of code. So you could, if you saw everything, you could see 4 different code lines, or software versions, and it can be confusing. So by using these policies, it narrows it down and says, this is what we recommend that you use. And you can you do these self-service upgrades, everything's not disruptive. And so you always are on a good solid version of code. All that's included within Pure One. Also within Pure One, we have built-in assessments. So we actually have a data protection assessment, a security assessment. So a lot of customers, another question we get is, how do I know? Well, we get, because your management will ask you, how do I know you're using best practices on our Pure arrays? Well, you can go into the data protection assessment and say, we are using best practices because my security score is a 4 out of 4. And what we do is we kind of look at what, are you doing, do you have safe mode turned on? Are you replicating your data? Are you taking snapshots? Are you doing all these things that our best practices are, and we give you a score based on that. And you can just see, like, if you look at those honeycombs there, those are volumes across arrays, and the ones that are green are in good shape. The ones that are yellow could use some, optimization. And the ones that are red, you need to take a look at. Now, the ones in red may be a file system that's used for archive, and you don't care about it, but we have that built in. We also have the security assessment, same thing. So how do management comes to you and says, how do we know that our systems are as secure as they can be? Well, from a Pure point of view, we have this assessment built that you go into Pure One, click on the dashboard, and it'll tell you how you're doing. So easy to use, constantly updated. Changes, I think we feed telemetry data in every 15 minutes, so it's updated every 15 minutes. So, and that's all part of your Evergreen Forever or Evergreen One cost that your maintenance costs. Earlier, I talked about the DRR anomaly. So part of the data protection assessment is this anomaly detection, where if we see an anomaly, we will flag it at the array, open up a case, you'll get alerted to that case has been opened, and you can drill into Pure One and see exactly what we're seeing going on. So in the case of the customer I spoke of earlier, they saw this data reduction rate anomaly kick off. They were able to go into Pure One and figure out that which array it was on, which volumes it was on, which led them to quickly identify that it was an Oracle backup and figure out the problem. But this could be, you could go in and see that this anomaly is happening on one of your VMware hosts, and that might be a big cause for concern. And we are doing this constantly in the background. And in addition to the DRR anomaly, we have, I think there's 6 other anomalies that we look for. One of them is what we call another simple one we look at is a reduction in snapshots. So say, for example, you've got a ransomware attack. The ransomware people want to hurt your ability to recover. So how do I stop you from recovering? I get your production authentication passwords, I delete your snapshots, I delete your backups, I kick off the ransomware attack. Now you have no ability to recover. So if we see we monitor the number of snapshots you have. So say you have 10 snapshots, all of a sudden those disappear, we kick off an anomaly. So, and there's a bunch of other ones that there's not a bunch, there's 6 of them we're doing right now, but we're continually adding more in based on knowledge that we gain. And this is all happening for you in the background, kind of Big Brother's watching your systems for you. So it's a pretty cool feature. I usually, when we demo this or when we show our existing customers, we always go to the screen and it's always blank. And I always tell them that's exactly what you want. You don't want to see what I'm showing you right now. That's bad. So one of the things I talked about earlier too was our cyber resilience, recovery and resilience add-on. So if we have two ways at a high level, you can capitalize, you can buy our stuff, or you can buy it as a service. If you buy our storage as a service, we call that Evergreen One, and one of the SLAs that you can add on to that Evergreen One is the cyber recovery and ransomware add-on, which is where we literally ship you a new array in the event of a ransomware attack, and a engineer to help you to get up and running after that array is shipped. So I talked about that a little bit more, so I'll skip past and skip. Okay, so
I definitely just talk to the safe mode part of this.
yeah, I was trying to get the safe one. I was hoping it was next. So I'm gonna all this stuff. This is a really cool slide. It's all pretty, but what I really want to talk about is safe mode ransomware protection, and I think it is right there. Perfect. I'm presenting from a hotel room, so I don't have the viewer page, so I don't know what slides are coming up. So I'm hoping that the next slide coming up is the one I want. So one of the things we want to emphasize, a lot of what we do is based on what we call safe mode. So at a high level, I said it earlier, snapshots are meat and potatoes for storage appliances. If a storage appliance can't do a snapshot, I don't know how they're still in business. The problem with a immutable read-only snapshot is that they can be deleted. So if I get, Carlos, if I get you, I'm going to assume you're an admin. If I'm wrong, I apologize. If I get your credentials, because I've been in your system for 9 months of dwell time and I've gotten all the passwords and everything I can, I go in, I delete the snapshots, and that immutable protection is now gone, because immutable means read only. It does not mean non-deletable. Our safe mode makes your snapshots indelible. So what happens in that case is that a snapshot or a volume cannot be deleted off the array. The only way that it can be removed is through a process that involves your admins and our support team. So it's a two key. So think about the old missile silo where you need two people with two keys turning it at the same time to say, yes, we want to do this. So there's no way for a hacker, even with your credentials, to delete those snapshots. That's how part of how we do the ransomware SLA is that by turning on safe mode, we know we have a copy of your data. So when we ship that new array, the engineer basically helps you replicate the safe mode protected snapshot to the new array to get your data there. And that safe mode protection is a built-in feature. It's not a add-on VM that runs monitoring your data. We don't take your data and copy it to another machine where we lock it down. It's just built right into an array, and we have the ability to buy protection groups to have production snapshots that are protected, and you can have dev and QA snapshots that aren't protected. What's nice with our snapshots that are safe mode protected, whether they're safe mode protected or not, everything is compressed and deduped, so the space utilization of a snapshot is minimal. And we actually ship our arrays with safe mode turned on. So unless you go out of your way to avoid using safe mode, if you buy a pure array, once you start creating volumes and using data, you're protected. And then what that does is again gives you it gives you that advanced ability to be able to recover, because we can take a snap on our systems. We can take a snapshot, copy it, basically clone it, and present that to a host. And it takes 2 clicks and a typing of a new volume name. So in about 10 seconds, you can restore a snapshot. So you get hit by a ransomware attack, you can start pulling up snapshots and restoring them and running forensics against them in 10 seconds. Again, if your backups are super quick and you can restore a backup in 30 minutes, great, but we can do it in 10 seconds right off the array. So we're getting near the end of the hour. Any questions about anything we've covered so far? Tessa? Any? Nothing?
Nope, there's nothing in the Q&A, nothing in the chat.
Cool.
All right. Well, either we were very informative or we put everybody to sleep. Either way. So one more thing I'll add is that's not really covered in this presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with Pure Storage, a couple things I like to bring up that are huge differentiators with us, or one that's a main differentiator. And another thing I just like to bring up is that through our Evergreen program, whether you're buying as a traditional CapEx or if you're looking to use us as a service, we have we are able to keep your storage solution modern throughout the years. And what I mean by that is just to break it down is we control the manufacturing of our hardware. So everything we have is backwards compatible. So for a traditional CapEx, if you will, if you have a storage solution in your shelf, in your rack today, 3 years from now, when you on that third year of support renewal, you will be getting brand new controllers that will non-disruptively replace your old ones in that system. And that's the brains of the operation, right? That's your CPU, that's your memory. In 6 years, same thing. 9 years, same thing. And I believe we do have people in this meeting who have gone through this at least 3 or 4 times. And the beauty of this is that you're not going to get to a situation where we're coming in trying to sell you new hardware because your support costs are going to be flat, and we call it the flat and fair maintenance policy, but we keep it flat throughout the for forever, if you will, because we're not having to replace, we're not having to pay support and more to understand old code. We're not having to have the cost of housing old hardware. So it allows everything to be predictable. But the important part of this, where it ties into cybersecurity, is that if your system's always modern, it means that you're always able to keep up with the latest code, which means that you're not going to be stuck with any vulnerabilities because you're sitting on a 4 or 5 year old system that you're trying to depreciate to the end of service life until you're going to buy another one and then have to start all over learning the new operating system, migrating your data, etc. So this is a key thing. The other thing I always like to mention to folks, if you spoke with us 5-6 years ago and you said, oh my God, Pierce, way too expensive, just so you know, we've expanded our portfolio quite significantly, and we do have higher density, lower cost systems that are very competitive in the market. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, because back when Pure was starting, they were more way more expensive than everybody else. We'd love to talk to you and show you a quote.